Well, good morning, everyone. Sorry we're a little bit late getting started here. My name is Sean Farrell. I'm the President and CEO of Managed Solution. We're kind of in I guess a big picture, we're just a big group of engineers who really focus in the world of, public cloud, identity management, things like anything you could think cloud services around, Microsoft Office 365 or what's called Dynamics CRM and, other tools there. But our goal here today is to really talk about, really the security components behind Microsoft and their platform EMS, and maybe some other tools that kind of look at the way we surround the Microsoft cloud and secure it from, AD and Azure all the way down through the mobility suite, or in this case, EMS. So I'm going to go through that with you guys. The audience is, I think, fairly big, so if there's any Q&A, please enter it into the chat box there, and I'll go ahead and answer it, but that's where we'll go. And hopefully we can get this thing done quickly. I don't think it's going to take a full hour, but and if you get bored, then you can chat that as well and let me know. So the first thing we just wanted to quickly talk to you guys about is a little bit about who we are again. So we're a nationally recognized partner. We say we're technology partners that empower business. What we realized a few years back, and I hope you guys feel the same who are listening, is that it's really important that we're able to walk into organizations and understand their business from a process perspective. What are you guys trying to accomplish? In the educational space, we're looking at more of the world of blended learning, these days, where people are working on and off campus, or students are for that matter. We have a lot more alumni than we ever had. We're seeing things where students are getting access over different devices to many applications that was never like that in the past. So it's not the traditional just Microsoft Offices anymore. It may be several other programs for student learning. So being able to get to those applications simply is very important. A lot of principals and different teachers want to publish information that they write or maybe the school writes. So all of that stuff is stuff that empowers businesses, which is what we're passionate about. So again, we're a nationally recognized service provider. We really are focused on the cloud. As you see, we're in the top 1% of cloud providers in the world, and you can kind of get an idea of how big we are. We probably work with about 1,500 businesses, state, local government, education, and then of course commercial, and we cover a large majority of the world in terms of what we do. And then offices, as you see, we're headquartered here in sunny San Diego, and then Orange County, Los Angeles, Phoenix, and over there into beautiful Denver. So with that said, I won't go into this one, but you can kind of get a flavor for all the things we've done well. A lot of fast growth in the company here. In terms of what we call cloud solution providers, we're in the top 100 in the country in terms of being able to deliver cloud products. I think you guys get the idea. So again, I did have on the line with us, if we need him, one of our architects here. His name is Ken Saunders, but I introduced myself before. I am Sean Farrell, and like I say, we're going to talk about EMS. And my opinion is it's Microsoft's answer to security and how we secure the cloud around Microsoft technology. So we'll go into that today. If anybody on the phone has seen the world of Forefront Identity Manager from Microsoft, or looked at identity management as it relates to Active Directory all the way down to the mobile device, when we look at Microsoft today, we talk about it as more like MIM, Microsoft Identity Management. And today, through EMS, we're going to talk about how we manage those identities. And again, we tell that story across the board with their different products. So we'll talk about using EMS, leverage EMS in the education industry, how we've seen it before, and then some case studies. So where do we start? You probably have heard through the new reign of Satya Nadella and Microsoft that really we're in a mobile-first, cloud-first world. So all we're saying is that users essentially expect to bring in whatever they want to bring in, and that could include iOS and Android devices, and of course Windows devices as well. And we want them to be able to kind of live in the world of what we call BYOD, bring your own device. So in some cases, or in most, frankly, especially in education these days, we're seeing, corporate-owned devices or, devices owned by the schools being given to the students. But then the flip is that a lot of students are wanting to log in with their own devices, whether it's, they're young and their parents have devices at home that they want to log in from, or, they have devices of their own, and even, frankly, their own mobile phones, which gets a little scary, but there are ways to control the security around that. And of course, they want to access the applications that, run on those devices, and we, as the, CIOs and IT directors, want to secure those. So I think we know that story. And then, of course, there's a lot of data and a lot of insights that we want to be paying attention to be both pushed to the student or the professor or the, obviously the people within the districts, and then of course back up, the students want to publish that data and house them in different types of platforms, whether that's something in the public cloud like Microsoft Azure or on-premise in our data centers. So let's just talk about, and I think there's a lot of confusion in just some of the terminology that comes down from Microsoft. I hear a lot as we get a chance to meet with customers or do these webinars or just do in-person events that we have. So again, when you look at in the grand scheme of things, you start to look at how do we manage the identity of our user, whether it's in education, public sector, or even in EDU. And our users, like we talked about in our world of K through 12, are going to be people who are students, faculty, staff, some contract employees, things like that. But we have to be able to manage that identity from the lead-in, which I always say is Microsoft Active Directory, and even before that, potentially our student information system, and there's several that are out there, all the way down to those mobile devices that we talked about that can be, those bring your own devices type plays. And again, we understand, we are a big Microsoft partner, but we understand that people want to bring iOS and other Android devices into their school districts, and that's okay. We can manage that. So again, at the very top, like I say, the overarching picture here is Microsoft Identity Manager and how we look at the identity of a person, how we manage from the mobile device and secure whatever it is they're working with. So I think that kind of tells the story. And then what we'll get into as we talk further here is really the tools to do that in a second, okay? So like we showed before, from the device in, you want to be able to provide a single identity for all applications. Okay, so I guess the simple way to look at it is, I as a student, myself, say Sean Farrell, I'm going to a university, or I'm back in the 12th grade, which I wish I was again. But anyway, if I get a chance to do that, I want to be able to log in from my mobile device through one login and password, be able to get to all of my applications that I use within the university or in 12th grade, be able to use those applications in a way that are given permissions. So let's just say I may be able to get a Word document from my teacher or professor that I want to be able to open up, but maybe my professor only wants me to be able to read it and not edit it. We have to be able to have control in IT over how we do that. But again, single identity for me so I can get to things easily. And the flip side of that is be able to see that my IT department in these organizations, K through 12 or even higher ed, is able to control what I'm able to do with that and really secure my identity. So with that said, we're going to talk about EMS specifically today. And everybody, I think, again, and to add to the confusion, I think everybody starts to see Enterprise Mobility Suite from Microsoft. And a lot of people, when they ask me, they think, oh, well, it's a mobile device management tool. So make no mistake, as I said in the beginning of this presentation, I think when we look at EMS, we're looking at Microsoft's answer to security. So in EMS, there's several components, and within each component, which I'll show you, you see right here on the screen, Azure AD Premium, Intune, and Azure Rights Management, there's several other pieces that we're going to talk about today. So we'll start with the three that come with EMS out of the box. The big one is Hybrid Identity Management with Azure AD. There's three flavors or three types that come with it. There's a basic, there's a free version actually, and then there's the premium version, which gives you sort of all the tools that come as part of Azure AD Premium. This is where we're going to get into things like single sign-on. We're going to get into multi-factor authentication and other tools. The second one is, of course, what you guys have probably seen in market in the past is Microsoft Windows Intune. That was Microsoft's really answer to mobile device management, being able to remotely control, wipe, add applications, all of the good stuff that mobile device management tools do for the enterprise. When you start thinking, and I think people have got confused by Microsoft a little bit here, about competitive landscape in mobile device management, your AirWatches and your Goods and your other technologies that are out there, I think just this piece alone, Intune, is more of a comparison. But when you look at the EMS suite altogether, you have to realize all of the other security tools we're getting to manage the enterprise. The third piece in EMS, of course, is information protection, which is under Azure Rights Management. Other people refer to it as information rights management, but again, that's where we go in and we control, obviously how much access our students, our faculty, our staff have to different information that's being passed down through the enterprise. So going back to it a little bit to get into a little bit more of the details. So Azure AD Premium, some of the things that it actually enables for the enterprise. So the big one probably is going to be into self-service password reset for your people. I always use, the online banking stuff, for example, or really anything these days. When you're even setting up your, I don't know, pay-per-view or Hulu accounts at home, I'm sure you guys see the whole thing where you can log in from your computer and then take the code off your screen, or, be able to receive a text message with a code that you have to put in to be able to get your users to be able to reset passwords. That's what Azure AD Premium enables, is that self-service password reset, which again, as we talk about here, really reduces the support on the back end for the IT department, and I know it's a big push. Multi-factor authentication for greater security. So, the way we look at multi-factor authentication is there's one thing you know and then another thing you have. So the one thing you know may be your password. The thing you have may be the mobile phone to validate that. Machine learning driven reports for threat protection. So when we look at that, we start talking about, what's happening. For example, I'm going to be my 12th grade self again, and I'm trying to log into one of my sites, and I keep doing it multiple times. All of a sudden, this machine learning is actually telling our systems on the back end in our data center, hey, Sean may not be the Sean we think he is. So again, this goes into making sure that we're getting security reports to figure out whether there's a threat. And then, of course, it talks about robust sync capabilities to on-premise directories. So this is where we start looking at how AD on-premise syncs with potential clouds like Microsoft Azure, and then talks to other platforms that are out there. Intune, so we talked about it. It's the mobile device application management platform. I'll show you how easy later it is to install in this demo. And it can be installed across all iOS, Android, and of course Windows devices. So it's a pretty robust platform there. And then, people ask me, wiping devices, what can I wipe, what can't I? If a student shows up and they're using, oh gosh, I don't know, iTunes, or they have certain games that they've had on their devices on their iPhone, can we keep those intact for the user, but then take everything that belongs to the university or the K through 12 school system and keep it on the device? The answer is absolutely yes. And then the third piece we'll talk about is Azure Rights Management. Information, that is done from the cloud or in a hybrid model. So basically, if we run applications on premise or we run them in the cloud, we want to be able to control what goes on with those applications and what we allow the users to do. So we'll talk more about that as we go forward. So the first one we want to talk about a little bit is the Azure AD Premium Self-Service Password Reset. I thought, we do all these presentations and people say, well, I get a lot of the sales side of the house. Well, this is really what it looks like if you're interested, to really talk about how the AD password self-service reset works. So essentially, like many devices, you get a choice to choose. Do I want to have a call come to my office with a passcode? Do I want to have a call to my mobile phone come in? Or do I want to go in and do an alternate email address to be able to have it so my user can authenticate or get back in through when they want to reset their password? So that's the basics that the administrator on your side sets up. Second to that, we get into, of course, obviously logging in through that password that you go in through the Microsoft, online portal screen for. So you're going to get in there and do that first and get yourself, moving through that process once you go into login as a user. Once you get in, is that if you're going to reset your password, you're going to make that choice. And if your administrator on the back end, as I showed you a minute ago, gives you that choice to do it through any of those three ways, mobile phone, office phone, even email, you're going to make that choice over here to do it that way. So that's up to the user, and it makes it pretty simple in nature. And frankly, when I look at some of the stuff I do personally, I mean, it just depends on the situation I'm in. Sometimes my mobile device is sitting right there, and I can quickly get a text message. Other times I don't like to toggle between my email and go back to the self-service password reset, so I'll just choose on the fly what I want to use. It's pretty incredible. And that's how it works. And of course, you put in your new password and you're back up and running, and it shouldn't take you too long. Is there any questions? I don't see any yet, but if there is anything about how that self-service password reset works, let me know. But again, this is part of the Azure AD Premium piece, which is again part of the EMS suite of platforms. So now, we're going to move into multi-factor authentication. So again, part of the Azure AD Premium piece under EMS, what you have here is where you start looking at having on one side users signing in from any sort of device they have, whether it's a computer at school, things like that. And then on the flip side of that, which is something we know passwords that we use in everyday life to get into certain applications. The flip side of that is to authenticate. We need to have a multi-factor, something that we have in our possession to be able to authenticate through. So on a mobile device, if we download the multi-factor authentication tool from EMS, it'll actually send us out a notification to say, hey, you look like you've logged in, and then on your mobile device you'll get a thing in your MFA tool that'll say, do you approve? And by approving that, because that device is in your hand, it's something you have, it authenticates you into the network. Pretty incredible tool. And I guess some people have asked me, what do I compare that to? And you start thinking about, this question came up, RSA tokens, things like that, where you have changing codes. I mean, same idea here. Something that you have in your possession that can help you with authentication. So in this case, a lot of the time it's your mobile device, which most people these days, that's what they like to use. So moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about, as we go through, oops, can the slides get moving here? Sorry guys, the slide did not animate as fast as we'd like it to. We're going to start talking about, again, another Azure AD Premium thing with single sign-on. So everybody's heard of, single sign-on and what it's supposed to do with our apps. So obviously, single sign-on from Microsoft comes within your Azure AD Premium suite. Now again, there's 3 flavors of Azure AD. Okay, there's the basic, there's the free version, which gives you basic synchronization or single sign-on capability to be able to get into your Microsoft applications, so your traditional Office 365 and other online apps. The second to that is your Azure AD free version, which gives you access to be able to get into up to 10 applications, even third-party apps. And then, of course, is your Azure AD Premium, which gives you all of the ability to do full single sign-on across many, many, many applications. And I'll show you some of the ones that Microsoft has published recently in their Azure Marketplace. Okay, I'm hearing I'm a little spotty from somebody, so I'm going to have to move on to a different phone. Give me just a second. Okay, so I'm back. Anyway, so where we're going to go now is, again, we're going to talk about the single sign-on application. So Azure AD Premium single sign-on, what we have to understand is that what we're doing is we're actually authenticating to our on-premise Active Directory, working through the Microsoft Cloud through Azure AD, and then logging into any applications, like we say, both Microsoft and non-Microsoft third-party, and being able to log on to our different applications via an SSO tool. So in this case, you kind of see how it works here. You see it where it's authenticating what devices it's coming through, and it's all controlled by Azure Active Directory. People have asked me, in addition to, I've heard about this Azure AD Connect, which is another synchronization or password synchronization tool, but it does the basics and doesn't provide true single sign-on for Microsoft applications. So Azure AD Premium is where you want to go if you want that tool. And in the grand scheme of the competitive landscape, when you look at products like OneDrive or Okta, a lot of people are moving down this road for Azure AD Premium as an SSO tool because it's included in the EMS suite and it makes a lot more sense as a full bundle. The next tool we're going to move on to is this continues to catch up. It looks like it's been syncing up. You can kind of see here, let me go back a little bit, you can kind of see here the different applications right now that Microsoft's affiliated with. So these are applications that you could pull down right out of Microsoft Azure and run in your environment. So if anybody uses, obviously, you see the Office 365 and the OneDrives and the Skype, and of course OneDrive is now SkyDrive is now OneDrive. These are all the applications that are going to be single sign-on enabled in the marketplace today. And as long as your application is SAML enabled, which most student information system and other educational software is, it works really well inside of the single sign-on capabilities of Azure AD Premium. There we go. Things starting to catch up here. So security reporting, we talked about that. Azure AD Premium does all the types of security reporting that alerts our IT department on the back end of everything that's going on. So we talked about inconsistent patterns. I'll give you an example. So if we see that that 12th grade student, again, Sean Farrell, has been logging into the environment out of using GPS and its capabilities for his mobile device out of Southern California, and then suddenly it looks like Sean Farrell's mobile device looks like it's trying to log in from, or the user, Sean Farrell's trying to log in from, I don't know, Texas. We're going to see inconsistencies in these security reports that come out of Azure AD Premium. And I don't know if you guys are going to be able to see this screen as well as I can here, but I'll show you just some of the highlights of what some of the features are in these security things. We could look at things like the type of device that people are logging in from. So maybe it's a different device that may not be consistent with what they've used before. It could be the geography in which they're logging in. It could be the amount of times that a person tried to log in and it becomes something where we believe somebody's trying to do some sort of password hack. So all those things give us security reports that are part of Azure AD Premium that can alert us when there's sort of malicious attacks happening on our network. Again, another incredible tool that comes as just part of this Azure AD Premium suite. Okay, so we're going to move on. So we've got through the Azure AD Premium. I'm going to skip into and come to that at the end because I think that's, again, the piece that's going to be installed on our mobile device. But I want to talk about, again, how we're securing that first before we get to how we install it and then be able to control all that and all these security features.
So Azure Rights Management. As you can kind of see, Azure is this Azure Rights Management sits up inside of the Microsoft Azure cloud, and it talks to Active Directory that sits on premise through what's called, I'm sure you guys may or may not know what's called synchronization, or ADFS, Active Directory Federation Services, and it's able to go out and control through every device that you use and through your files that go out or through your databases or email or SharePoint servers, what rights or policies you govern, whether it be documents or the way people share data or any type of content that they're trying to push out there, how you manage it. And so in this case, it's kind of a tool that sits in between everything, and policies are set up by our IT administrators to make sure that certain rights are being captured and make sure that things aren't happening maliciously in the universities or in the K through 12 areas. And the big thing is I think we want to be able to make sure that data that's going out of the organization or being shared with others is maintained, contained, and that we're doing the right thing with it, so hence rights management. So with that said, Office 2016, it could be 2013, it could even be Office 2010. Again, there's different versions that we're seeing in the K through 12 space. I wanted to pull up this screen a little bit, but I wanted to talk about how you can implement rights management across different segments of the K through 12 area. So let's just say that we wanted to segment out, my, first through sixth graders, or my 9th through 12th graders, or even different groups within the different unified school districts. We can do things on a group-based or user-based way. So if I wanted to look at individual users, I could set up specific rights, or if I wanted to do specific groups, like maybe it's teachers, I could set up specific rights. And those rights can range from, allowing documents to expire. So my example, I always use, I'm a little older, so don't forgive me on this one, but Mission Impossible, when you look at this message will self-destruct, well, we can make it so messages go out for a specific period of time, somebody can view them, and then they just don't, they no longer exist in that email that was sent to somebody, or they just don't exist in that Word doc that was sitting there in a recently viewed file. They just go away. We can look at, read access only to a document. You can kind of see, if you look, this is a screen that we took a screenshot of. You can look at the read access that Ken Saunders at a Gmail account has into this document. They can have full control. They can have custom control to actually edit it. I mean, you can really think about doing anything. You could even go as far as to say, I'm going to send, and this is a great thing we've seen with professors or teachers in schools, they publish great content, or they may publish, whether it's a homework assignment or something they want to send out to their students, but they don't want their students to be able to forward it any further than that. They can set rights to be able to say, hey, I want this to go out to my classroom, which is, by the way, in my group. Maybe a classroom is considered a group, and that doc can go no further. Things Excel, Word, PowerPoint, you name it, files, we can do it. And then, of course, if you guys do want to send documents outside of the organization, so let's say we're not inside of the Unified School District and we want to send things to, a third party, whether it's, maybe it's a finance third party or something, some third party company we're working with, or even just other, maybe students who are outside of our school district, we can do that as long as the other school district or their people or other parties we're working with have a Microsoft Live account. And we can set up all these same policies or rights inside of these documents that we would inside of our own organization. So don't think this is limited to just internal, but also think about how we send documents out into the real world. And again, the big thing we have to think about here is how we retain the intellectual property that belongs to our school district. That's the big thing here. That's securing the documents. And there's another tool within Office 365 we're not going to get into today, but it's all called data loss prevention, which is part of your Office 365 E3 suite, which talks about how we control documents that go outside of the organization. But rights management does a lot of that for us. Right here, we're going to talk a little bit about SharePoint. So one of the biggest things we've seen in recent years inside of the K through 12 or even more higher education is a lot of people want to use SharePoint as just a pure content management platform. They may not use SharePoint as necessarily an intranet portal. And as I tell people, let me back up a little. SharePoint can be a lot of things for both a commercial business or an educational facility. I mean, it can be your, I call it business in a box. I mean, you can publish news articles and press releases and, new things that are happening in sports. We just won the CIF championships here in California. We can do all that stuff, but it can also be used as a content management system where we house, much like we would our shared drives, all of our Word and PowerPoint and other Microsoft Office documents. So when we look at SharePoint as a potential content management system, we also want to have the same information rights coming out of there than we would in just individual documents or right out of Azure Rights Management. So these things are built right in to do the same stuff we just talked about in the basic tools. So again, we can set ways where people can read and write certain things. Groups can have certain permissions. Certain files and folder structures can only be seen and not edited. So again, same type of rights can be set up inside of SharePoint. It just takes sitting down with the, I guess, stakeholders in the university or the K through 12 and figuring out what makes sense. And they're easily changeable on the fly. But again, like anything, when we used to develop file and folder and security policies in our traditional shared drive, very important we set this Azure Rights Management stuff up, especially if we're using SharePoint or we're just doing it within Microsoft Office, that we get these things in order. The next thing we're going to talk quickly about is just how it works in Outlook. So again, you can go into Outlook and be able to go and, again, say that email that I'm sending from students or from faculty to students will expire in 20 minutes or an hour or the next day. You can go in and say that only certain parts of the document can be read by students and others by somebody else. You can make it so students can't reply or forward the document. It's really up to you. The rights get very granular, but again, you have control on this rights management piece right inside of your Outlook as well. Any questions? Looks like so far we have been good. Okay. And we're doing good on time here too. Okay, so this sort of sums it up, and before I, this is just kind of a simple snapshot of how this all works. So again, to be able to control the devices, and I say devices, I mean all types from Android to iOS to Windows in our K through 12 facilities, we have to have some agent, which is in this case Intune, installed in those devices. Now people ask me, I mean, in the big picture, what am I looking at? How does this all kind of fit? So from the top down, as we said in the beginning, you have your Active Directory. And maybe even before that, you have your SIS system where students are enrolled and not enrolled, and same thing with faculty and staff. So if we can get to a perfect world where in Active Directory we put in a new student, that student information is then published out and then potentially application deployed. And in a lot of cases, application deployment down to the mobile device can be done through two products, Microsoft Intune, and if you use it in the K through 12, Microsoft System Center Configuration Manager. And in a lot of cases, those two tools, that was a tough one, tie together, okay? But Intune, by having it on the mobile device, that's where we can go and deploy applications. And when we say mobile device, let's go back and think about desktops and laptops and anything that can be mobile for someone working or going to school in our K through 12 district. So again, when we want to go and deploy these applications, we want to set up these rights, we want to give them access to be able to single sign on or get into an application through one login. That's where we have to make sure that we have Intune running on the device so we can do and have control of all these things. So this is sort of what wraps up security. Here we go. Okay, so device policies inside of Intune. Intune can do anything from remote wiping a device to remote wiping certain applications. And let me give you the best way to look at it. People ask me all the time because it is somewhat confusing. If Intune was downloaded onto my mobile device, in this case I have an iPhone, once that's downloaded onto the mobile device, whatever applications are then published or deployed down to that device, let's say it's a student information system or of some sort, or it's SharePoint or a Word doc coming through to that device, or Adobe or whatever it is I'm using, those are all the applications that if I was to exit the school or leave the school as a teacher or anything like that, I have rights, CIO or the IT to pull back. Anything that the person came in with, such as games and things like that on their phone, those things will remain there. If we want to go as far as to, once the student comes into the university and signs a certain type of document, say I won't download certain things, we can go as far as to controlling things like iTunes or Google Play or even the Microsoft Store. So we can disable those things as well, depending on how we set up the rights and how our, I guess you could say, student handbooks or handbooks look for the university or the K through 12. So again, this can get very granular. It can help you with audit. The other thing that people are starting to get into more than ever is really understanding, we'll just say hardware and software and really what's being used inside of the school and what's not. I think as we look to purchase more licensing and we look at usage across the spectrum of what's being used and what's not, I mean, it's a great way to look at, what things are popular with students. Intune is a tool that does all of that for us. All right, keep moving on. The next one is I was going to give you guys a quick look. So here's an actual iPhone. And what we're going to do is show you how simple it is to get the Intune application installed on your phone. So if you check here, I'm going to give you a live screen in just a second. Intune can either be self-initiated, meaning you can go into any of your iTunes, Google Play, or Microsoft Store and be able to download it, or we can deploy an agent that brings Intune onto your mobile device so long as they're affiliated with the organization. So let's see here, just a sec. We're going to get this thing playing for us. Maybe we're not today. Maybe it's not going to play. Oh, well, I was going to show you how easy. But essentially, if you were to go into any one of your stores, in this case iTunes, type in Microsoft Intune, and it would come up for iOS, it would actually deploy for you on your iPhone. So, there we go. Is it going? Yeah. So the other thing we wanted to talk a little bit about, I thought it was interesting in school today, is so Microsoft has actually has what's called Azure for Research program. If you or students or anybody you know inside of the K-12 system is interested in working with Microsoft to use their Microsoft Azure cloud, which is basically, we'll just say, a large utility-based computing platform, to do some sort of research or project, Microsoft is really pushing this. They're giving awards every year, every July at Microsoft's Worldwide Partner Conference. But we've seen some pretty good things come up in the last several years from, how do we work with groundwater water and help other countries to, how do we deal with floods in Texas, and looking at things like how do we predict things in the future using, the Power BI or intelligence suite that comes from Microsoft. So anything that you guys ever think about, you can obviously reach out to your software partner, or you can reach out to Managed Solution, and we can help get you in touch with Microsoft. The last thing, we wanted to talk to you about was a recent education case study. So there was a lot of things that were happening within trying to figure out how to find, I guess what we ran into was people who had missing children. So what we did was built a photograph store that published millions of children, their photographs inside of Microsoft Azure. So running it in Azure, we were able to go out and help figure out by publishing data through Azure into different students and parents and teachers' hands, ability to go out and search for students over the web and be able to quickly get information out to get them back home a lot quicker. It was a pretty amazing story. And then, to kind of finish that one off, I didn't see a lot of questions today. Again, I think the big picture we got to think of here is EMS as it relates to Microsoft Cloud products and, frankly, on-premise products, including on-premise Active Directory, how we secure a data center, how we secure our students and teachers' data. That's really the security features and functions around Microsoft that are helping secure the enterprise. We're going to be doing some more presentations on Microsoft Azure as we move data up into that cloud. Again, EMS does the same stuff in a hybrid fashion to make sure this is all being secured. So I wanted to say thank you. I know this was quick. We got through it in 35 minutes, so hopefully that's better than an hour. If you guys have any questions, you can definitely give us a call at managedsolutionssingular.com. And thank you guys for attending today.